Whether
Yeah.
you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
Sleeping is a struggle for a lot of us.
Sleep issues do not start when we put our head on the pillow. They start when we wake up.
I drop my kids off to school every morning, and I don't tell them, have a good day. I tell them, make it a good day. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Accidental CEO podcast. I have an amazing guest with me today, Stephanie D'Alfonso. She has an amazing story, great skills, and a lot of good stuff to share with us. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. I don't know. I thought I had a pretty great story until I listened to your first episode and learned about you, Nada, and it was like, whoa, that is quite a story yourself, my friend.
Yes, lots and lots of stories in there. So definitely go back and listen to that episode if you guys haven't. I feel like it will give you a good insight on what I'm about and the things that I want to bring it to you guys. So thank you.
Yeah, it was pretty inspiring. I can say that.
Oh, I appreciate it. So tell us about you, where you are, what do you do right now, and then we might backtrack a little bit and ask where you came from and all that good stuff.
Oh, yeah, because when we go way back, it's like, ooh, this is really interesting, right?
Yeah.
So for 19 years now, I have been an integrative hypnotist. And like, okay, what does that mean, integrative hypnotist? It's because hypnosis is one of my superpowers. It is one of the most incredible tools that we could ever learn how to harness, because it's harnessing the power of our mind. Like, we already have this within. Most of us don't know how to access it. I was like listening to your episode and going, oh my gosh, because you learned how to harness it at a very young age. But most of us were not taught that. That was something that, maybe you were taught, but I think you also, I got a sense from listening to your story that it's just a natural part of who you are. Mm-hmm. So, some people may, first of all, they hear, ooh, the H word, hypnosis. And,
right.
It's nothing like what you see in the TV and movies, right? That's all for entertainment. It's for fun, right? Hypnosis at its base is a focused state of awareness. That's it. Anybody raise your hand if you've ever had a focused state of awareness, and everybody's going to raise their hand. So it's simply like, for somebody who's like, oh, I've never really heard about hypnosis in this way. Think about, if you drive, as most of us do, we drive cars, we drive somewhere, we get there and it's like, I don't remember the drive. That's literally called highway hypnosis. My daughter, who's in her 30s now, she was 16 years old, she came home from driver's ed one night and she's like, oh, we were talking about highway hypnosis, because it's a common occurrence, right? Another thing is, if you play video games or you're watching, if you're watching a movie and they want you to cry, you find yourself tearing up, or if it's a scary movie and you find yourself jumping in your seat, for that moment in time, you've just simply forgotten that it's a movie, it's actors and actresses, right? You're in the moment. And so when we can come into this focused state of awareness, that's where the magic happens. And it's not swinging a pocket watch or a magic wand or anything. It's truly just learning how to come into your power and then blossoming from there.
Because being in the zone, a lot of times, I guess, is what people refer to, being in that state of hyper concentration that, really allow you to focus on whatever you're doing at that time.
And it's harder and harder these days because of technology, right? Technology. And for those of you who are listening but are not able to see this on video, I'm holding up a battery, because this battery, to me, represents life. Everything in life has a positive side, as I touch the positive side of the battery, and a negative side, right? So everything has this positive and negative. And so technology is incredibly positive. You and I would never have connected. We wouldn't be having this conversation without it. But there's so many distractions, right? We're constantly, sometimes I feel like, like a ping pong ball in a wind tunnel, because, there's just so much bouncing us about. But when we can get still, I started with a new client this morning and she was like, I felt stillness. I felt like I accessed stillness. And I said, oh my gosh, congratulations, because that's what people spend months and years going to ashrams and stuff to try and find, how do I access that stillness?
Yeah.
And it really can be so much simpler than we think.
Amazing. So, for those of you who don't know, about Stephanie, the reason why she was so good at knowing that some of you are just listening and not seeing and describing what she was doing, and she has a little of a past in the arena of media. So,
Oh,
tell us a little bit about your journey, what you did before, and how you became an integrative hypnotist.
okay, good. I'm so glad you asked it that way, because you said she has a little bit of a past, and I was like, oh boy, do I have a little bit of a
Just a
past.
little.
But we'll just steer it towards, okay, my voice is the through line. Literally, my voice is the through line of my entire adult life and now 2 careers, because I started my professional life as a celebrity radio DJ. I was Stevie Knox. Knox is my maiden name. You shorten Stephanie to Stevie. And the guy before me came out of a Fleetwood Mac song and said, hey, that's Fleetwood Mac and Stevie Nicks. And Stevie Knox is coming up at midnight. And it stuck. And so I
What a great
had
name.
I had the most fun. It was just such an incredible, fun journey. And that's how I met my husband. It was great. And yet, my last job, most of my time on the radio was in South Florida, in the Miami Fort Lauderdale market. And my husband also was in radio. We met, he hired me at a radio station there.
Ah,
We're still together, celebrating our 40th anniversary this year.
congratulations.
So, my last job was when we were in Portland, Oregon, and I was doing the morning show. So I was getting up at 3 in the morning. I had 2 babies. I had one who was still in diapers. My husband was traveling around the country, and oh, surprise, insomnia, meet anxiety, which I did not know until then that I had struggled with anxiety my whole life. So
Mm.
collide. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely debilitating. So I went and got medication, did what we all do, right? Go and get a medication. And it worked, but only for a short time. And then it got worse. And then I was struggling. And oh my gosh, what if I take the medication and it doesn't work? And then self-fulfilling prophecy, it didn't. And I wasn't sleeping. So I was like, okay, I've got to figure this out on my own. And I started researching, what could I do? Like, I wanted to be able to take control, right? Ooh, I used to love I thought, oh, yeah, if I just figure this out, I can be in control. Yeah,
Mhm.
not so much. But I was like, okay, I'm researched. And this was long ago, right? This was back in the 1990s. And there wasn't as much, we didn't have the computer. We didn't have Google yet, right? So I was going to libraries and
Yeah.
literally checking out cassette tapes and magazines, whatever I could find. And I learned, people know it as tapping now. I learned emotional freedom techniques way back in the 90s when Gary Craig was first rolling it out. And
Mhm.
it helped me learn to sleep and to start to calm my stress and anxiety. My radio career is over. I'm now a stay-at-home mom. I'm trying to tell people about this. Wow, there's this thing that's like acupuncture without needles, and you can self-apply it. I'm watching, oh, eyes are glazing over like, what is she on, right? And then years later, I find that Gary Craig, in his newsletter talking about the emotional freedom techniques, would be talking about other people who were using it. They were also doing hypnosis. And so I like, I think I need to check out hypnosis. And oh my gosh, my first day of hypnosis training, it was like the skies opened. I heard the angels, the choirs singing, because I knew, oh, here is this incredible, powerful tool.
Mhm.
And you can change that quickly, that easily. Let me learn more. And that was 20 years ago. And I have now, I call myself an integrative hypnotist because it's hypnosis and so much more.
Mhm.
Because with tapping, I still use tapping, not with everybody. and not every time. It's knowing when to pull in, oh, the tapping can be helpful for this. And oh, let me pull in elements of neurolinguistic programming. And let me pull in elements of yoga. Yoga, I am a consummate yogi where I have learned that it's not just about being flexible on the mat, it's about being
Yeah.
flexible in life, right?
Mhm.
So it is this opportunity to really create life the way we want it to be. And it's, oh, you're going to make me bark like a dog, cluck like a chicken. Literally nada. I used to go to the local networking groups, and there was a guy who every time I'd walk in, he'd say, watch out, she's going to make you bark like a dog, cluck like a chicken.
Oh my
And I
gosh.
realized many years later that it didn't matter how many times I was like, Tom, I have no control over you. I can't do anything. He wasn't going to believe it. He was afraid that I was going to be able to, control him. And it's not like that. And especially, I do a monthly free self hypnosis class every month. It's free. It's an opportunity to, dip your toes in and to
Mhm.
realize what I'm doing when I'm talking about this and talking about self hypnosis. I'm like, one of the biggest myths is that somebody has mind control, but okay, if we're doing self hypnosis, don't you want to be the one who's programming your mind? Right?
Yes. So I had always had a question about hypnosis. Can anybody be hypnotized, or is there people that just cannot get into that state?
So the only person I've actually not been able to hypnotize in just under 20 years of doing this was somebody who was, he had some impairments. There was some brain injury. And so, like,
Mhm.
literally, he could not follow the directions that I was, trying to share with him.
Mhm.
There have been a couple of times can still see when I first opened my practice in 2005, I got in our local newspaper several times, and it'd always bring a nice influx of business. And I had these two guys came the same week that this one newspaper article came out, and they sat with their arms crossed, like, okay, you can't hypnotize me. And, I was new. I was like, oh, I'm going to try everything I can. Now I would just laugh and say, well, Henry Ford said years ago, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right.
You were right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if it's a naturally occurring phenomenon that we go into this state when we're driving, and we call it highway hypnosis, if it's a natural state that we go into when we get lost scrolling online or watching a movie or something, anybody can do that. So yeah, anybody can be hypnotized if they want to. That's the caveat, right? Have you ever been have you been to like a stage hypnosis show?
Yeah. Stage. Yes, I've watched
Okay.
it.
And so when was that like, was that scary? Like, how do they get them to do that?
Oh yeah, it's always intriguing, right? So you're like, is it fake? Are they faking? Had they talked about it before? You don't want to be the one raising your hand to volunteer to go a lot of
Right.
times
And
because you don't know
and
what's coming.
and yet there are people who do raise their hands that are like, and the reason, and by the way, I can't vouch for every stage hypnotist, but I was trained as a stage hypnotist because boy, you can make a lot of money if you're good.
Oh
But
yeah.
I was like, okay, that's not really why I want to do this. I want to do this from the healing arts perspective, right? But when you are going to one of those shows,
Hmm.
the stage hypnotist, when they are masterful at what they do, they know who's going to be open to play along. And a lot of times there's alcohol involved, you go with some friends and this is going to be fun. And so you're open to that possibility. You and
Hmm.
we'd never raise our hands. Oh yeah, let me go up on stage and maybe make a fool of myself. I'll pass.
Exactly. So I know you focus a lot on women, specifically over 40. So tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about why you chose that population.
Well, it's because you're in your early 40s. So, you may just be touching into this, but also, what I said before we started recording, I listened to your first episode and was amazed at your mindset because you really have such a strong mindset. You would never have achieved nearly what you have. have if you didn't. But for many of us, the 40s are such a tough decade because, and I'm talking specifically about women.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not tough on the guys, but for us women, 40s can be really, really challenging because we are dealing with kids, perhaps. We're dealing with elderly parents and all that ensues. We're dealing with trying to get ahead in our careers, or, oh my gosh, this is the career I chose and this isn't really what I want and I'm not fulfilled and what the heck do I do? There's just all these incredible pressures that come to bear in our 40s. And the reason that I really want to focus on helping women in their 40s is because it's like I know the shortcuts. Let me help you get there, get around these little roadblocks. Let me help you get around them a lot faster than I did. This is, years and years of me. It all started out as, for myself. I needed to learn again. I didn't know the first half of my life. I struggled with anxiety, but didn't know it. Back then, that's all I knew. I thought it was normal to walk around with my shoulders bunched up like earrings on my ears, right? And to worry, but not just worry about anything and everything. I always worried about the worst case scenario.
Mhm.
They call it catastrophizing.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, I figured out, it took me a long journey to figure all this stuff out. Now it's like, I know the shortcut. Come with me. Let me help you find that incredible freedom in every area of your life and live the life of your dreams now. Not, let's kick out this idea of, oh, when I'm 65, I'm going to retire and I'm going to sit in a rocking chair. And, let's start living now.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about the unique challenges that women in that age group face in their business and the corporate executives, maybe they're entrepreneurs. So what are some of the things that you see often in that population?
So I think that in our 40s, a lot of us really are having major questions about our worth, and our confidence takes a huge hit because, again, if you started, say you went to college and you started on this career track. I do work with younger and older women too. So I'm working with a 21-year-old now who is in college, and she's got all kinds of questions going on. But say
Yeah.
you go through college and you're like, all right, this is my career track, and you've got it all mapped out in front of you, and you know what you're going to be doing for the next couple of decades. And you get chewed up and feel like you're getting spit out, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not what I want to keep doing for another 20, 30, 40 years. Um, wow, okay, what do I do? Conversely, so that's if you're in corporate and you're on a track that you're not really happy with, like, okay, now what do I do? There's all kinds of incredible amounts of fear, and then the self-judgment, the blame, the shame, the guilt, and all of that goes with it. And then as an entrepreneur, you got a whole another set of things that you have to deal with, because
Yeah.
when somebody shifts from working for someone else to all of a sudden you are now responsible for all of it,
Yeah.
now you've got a whole nother level of things that are knocking on your brain at 2 in the morning saying, oh, you think you're going to sleep and get some rest? Let's talk about this.
Yes, absolutely. I can attest to that. Definitely can. I'm
Yes.
sure I'm not the only one. And I feel like I've been seeing a lot more of that anxiety and even questioning of self-worth and all that, even in younger population right now. I feel like the new generation that's coming along now to become business owners are very aware, self-aware, right? So they're very much into like mental health and under self-development and things like that. So they find that anxiety and that challenge with self-worth a lot earlier than maybe previous generations have found. So
Well, and
that leads me
also,
to
this is where my book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom, that I've got behind me, I wrote that. I never planned. it's all about my voice, right? And so I never planned on writing a book, but in 2018, I heard the whisper, write the book. And I birthed this book out to show people there are simple ways to calm our stress and anxiety. And with my book, I have this initiative where you buy a book, I give a book to a school or organization that will help teach kids, teens, and young adults some of these skills. Because long before the pandemic, I was saying, wow, I need to figure out how to get in schools, because if we taught these skills, if we taught kids how to emotionally regulate when they're kids, it's going to change the trajectory. It's going to make that arc a lot
Yeah.
easier for them. So the pandemic came, all of us, I think, the way that I visualize this is, it was like we were living in a snow globe, and somebody, the big kahuna up there, or whoever you want to call it, had taken this snow globe and just shaking it and didn't stop, and just kept shaking it and shaking it. And as it started settling, kids, teens, and young adults, I think, are really the ones who took the brunt of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I have a friend whose son was a senior in high school in 2020. Those kids, like, everything they had planned on was wiped out. Like, the prom, all of that got just wiped out. And so they now have graduated, are graduating this year. So they've got a whole new layer of stress and anxiety. And I really have come to understand that, at 64 years old, the grandmother figure, I'm not the one to go into the schools and teach the kids. However, when I can get to the adults, when I can get to the moms, and think about when I help a mom in her 40s to find her way of finding balance, that's going to trickle down to the kids, right? Because my kids got to witness, mom being incredibly stressed out, anxious all the time, and finding her balance. My son came home
Mm-hmm.
from college one time. My son, who I don't know for sure if he still does call me this, but I know he used to. He did fess up to. He called me the woo-woo crackpot because he didn't believe in any of this stuff. And yet, he graduated from college. He was in the top 20 of his class. He's an Eagle Scout, like, overachiever. And he graduated without a job. We were shocked. 2 months after graduating, he says, do you have any ideas of something I could do to help me find a job? Ms. Woo Woo Crackpot. So I taught him this simple technique called affirmations instead of affirmations. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've heard of affirmations. For the most part, they don't work. And I'm sure that just caused you to go, wait, did she just say that? Did she just say affirmations don't work? Yes, I did. And here's why. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, I was 50 pounds heavier than I am now. And it's not like I went, oh, well, we're in a pandemic. This is a great time for me to start dropping weight. No, I realized I wasn't physically moving my body enough.
Mm-hmm.
And the Latin root of the word emotions is emovere, and it means to move. And I somehow was able to figure out, I'm not moving my physical body. That is keeping my emotions stuck. So maybe I need to start moving. So I started moving in 2020, and I have dropped and kept off 50 pounds. Well, before that, if I clicked my heels 3 times, like they said in the movie The Secret, and I easily reach and maintain my ideal size and weight, everything inside of me would be screaming, no, that's not true. Look in the mirror, look at the size of your clothes, look at the number on the scale, right? So that's why I say affirmations don't work, because when we say these things that we really don't believe, that we've like, oh, that's
Mm-hmm.
not true, everything inside of us is pushing back on it. When instead we turn it into a question. So for my son, it was, okay, do this question. Why is it so easy for me to find the ideal job in this salary range? So Noah St. John, who wrote the book Affirmations, that's his
Mm-hmm.
process. All right, you ask the question and then you leave it to the universe. I add in, ask the question, why is it so easy? And so it is. So you're affirming that it is easy. And then thank you, thank you, thank you, because the power of gratitude is just, it's infinite, right? So he does this. He goes on, and a couple hours later, he sends me texts of snapshots he's taken of he went on to write pages and pages of why it was so easy for him to find this job. Now, that's
Mhm.
not, I didn't tell him to do that, but I certainly didn't tell him he was wrong because he was doing it his way, which I'm always like, okay,
Yeah.
take what I give you. And when you can make it work better for you, great.
Yeah.
So he sends me these snapshots, and hand to God, nada. Within 2 or 3 weeks, he had a job offer in his salary range. It was a good job offer. I went to help him find a place to live. And when we got and checked into the condo I'd gotten for the week, negative Ned checked us in. Oh, he's never going to be able to find a place to live. The housing market's horrible and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, you know what? We can't hear him. Let's do our affirmations. We do the affirmations, and he finds a fabulous 2-room suite in a 3-story mansion with an elevator within walking distance of the only beach in that town for
Right.
exactly the money he had budgeted. So it works. And the reason that I have like 35 techniques in the book, but then like 100 or more in my head, is because one size doesn't fit all. So when a
Yeah.
client comes, that integrative part of my practice, the integrative hypnosis, is I'm blending the hypnosis with the affirmations, with the tapping, with essential oils and sound, right? Because one size doesn't fit all. But when I say, all right, uh, let me share. You think this is all woo woo crackpot, but all right, you're going to give it a try. Oh, and you take what I give you, and then you made it your own. Oh, what's the chances he's gone back and done that again and again? Very high.
Absolutely.
I mean,
So good.
it's so simple because we want to make things so complicated. We humans just really think everything has to be
Oh, love it.
complicated, and if it's not hard, it's not worth it. I know the shortcut. Let me show you.
Not so much. I love it. So, on in your book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom, you offer 35 simple strategies to manage stress and anxiety. Can you share 2 or 3 of those strategies that you find the most effective,
Yep.
that your clients have had great success with?
Yep. So the affirmations is the first one. I've already mentioned that because it's
Mhm.
so powerful. It's again, you nodded. You'd heard that quote that I shared from Henry Ford before. Whether
Yeah.
you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So with the affirmations, we are now programming our mind where we want to go. Well, why is it so easy for me to reach and maintain my ideal size and weight? And I have maintained it for over 2 years now, right?
Mhm.
So, another one, so simple, is I got a lot of breath techniques because our breath is always with us. There are pills, potions, apps, and all these things externally. I got something in my inbox this morning, and I was just shaking my head because here was another device you could buy for it's on sale for just blah blah blah, that this is going to help you regulate your stress. Well, guess
Mm.
what? If you just come to your breath, that's going to work. So, if you'll indulge me, and if you're listeners, as long as you're not driving, please close your eyes or let them come to a soft gaze and simply focus on your breath. Perhaps noticing the way it comes in your nostrils and comes back out a little bit warmer. Or perhaps you're noticing the rise and the fall of your chest or your belly. And if you simply keep coming back to noticing your breath, and as you do this, I guarantee your monkey mind is going to come in with some random thought. It's what our minds do. And you simply, oh, this is the magic moment. You recognize and you come back to your breath, right? Rather than, oh, I shouldn't be thinking, you just keep coming back to your breath. And I can see, Nada, you've already like, oh, I can see that calm wave has come over you. And so go ahead and open your eyes and come back. And I didn't time it. And I knew, for time's sake, it would be too long, like 90 seconds is too long. But if we can sit with our breath for 90 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
so fascinating. 90 seconds is how long? It's the chemical component, the chemical lifespan of an emotion. It only lasts 90 seconds. Now, this is not me just making this up. This is why I love that I can, come up with all this research, because I could say that and you could be like, all right, is she just making that up? Jill Bolte Taylor is a Harvard trained neuroscientist who
Mm-hmm.
studies people's brains for a living. And she experienced a stroke. And so this neuroscientist got to have this really incredible experience of witnessing herself
Yeah.
as she was having a stroke. And her TED Talk is called My Stroke of Insight, because
Yep. I
this is
love
where
that
she
one.
discovered, this is where she discovered that it's only 90 seconds. And I can tell you from years and decades of experience that my emotions did not feel like they were over in 90 seconds. But that was because I kept bringing them up and chewing on them, bringing them up and bringing them up. And so I did this with somebody the other day, and she was just like, wait, what just happened? Because she'd started out with this huge, intense emotion. And then, like, she couldn't really get back in touch with that in just 90 seconds. So when that happens, that puts you back in the driver's seat. And I'm really big about, you're in the driver's seat, right? If we work together, you think of me. By the way, when I was Stevie Knox, I was the very first automated voice. Back, it was like the late 1980s, maybe around 1990. My
Oh.
husband would travel around the country. He'd be in Chicago picking up a hotel phone and hear me saying, to listen to your messages, press one, right? And so you can think of me like Siri, the driving app, right? Think of me as sitting in the passenger seat. You're driving, and I'm simply saying, take a left up there. You get to choose whether you turn left or keep going straight. So 90 seconds, isn't that worth, like, all right, and I literally, when I do this with clients, I set the tone on the time on my phone, and then I begin and end with this really soft little chime,
Mm-hmm.
because it's just that alone, that sound is like calming to our nervous system. So when
Right.
we can come to our breath, 90 seconds, like, oh, could you find 90 seconds here during the day and 90 seconds here in the
Mm-hmm.
afternoon? I am really a big proponent of these simple ways to weave it into our day, instead of when I was first introduced to meditation, decades ago. I'll always remember the instructor. The first thing she said was, empty your mind. That's the worst thing to tell somebody with a conscious mind that won't shut up, right? You say that, and now I've got thousands of thoughts coming into my mind. The
Yeah.
second thing was, you need to meditate 20 minutes in the morning and 20 minutes again in the evening. That wasn't going to happen. And in our busy society now, if you don't have any kind of practice like that, and somebody says, oh, take 20 minutes to meditate, it's not going to happen. But if
Mm-hmm.
I invite you to say, oh, could you just set your timer on your phone for 90 seconds and stop a couple of times during the day? You're going to get the same benefits of, quote unquote, meditating
Right.
than if you took that 20 minutes, which most people won't, right? So when we can offload the stress throughout the day, it's not giving it a chance to build up to these incredible levels where you end up where what my breaking point was. And I share this in the book. I share this, freely, because I want people to understand that they're not alone. We all have a breaking point, and mine literally was a bag of Cheetos when I lost it smashing a bag of Cheetos. That was my wake up call, because, that was when I was struggling with insomnia. I didn't know how to, I couldn't function. And so I'm smashing this bag of Cheetos. And I want people to understand, I share that because it's not one of my finest, not one of my proudest
Mm-hmm.
moments, but I share it. So if you find yourself at your wit's end and let's just like, ah, okay, it's not the end. right? It's like, okay, it's just an awareness that what what can I do differently? Oh, can I come to my breath for 90 seconds? That's doable. Then what can I do next, right? So chunking it down into small steps, simple shifts are what create lasting change.
That's amazing. Very, very good. So I know in the creative arena, we talk about it, we make fun about it, we make memes about it very often. Sleeping is a struggle for a lot of us. And I don't know if it's a combination of just having a creative mind with the responsibility of running your own business and having to wear many, many hats as an entrepreneur and business owner. What is some of the advice you usually give to your clients when it comes to just a better sleeping hygiene and better techniques for good sleep?
Love that we're touching on sleep because the most recent stats I've seen, they were from 2020. So I think they might be a little out of date now. And that
Mm-hmm.
was that a third of Americans were not getting 7 hours of sleep. And I think that it's much higher than that since the pandemic. And so if you only take one thing away from what I'm about to say about sleep, it's this one thing because it will change everything for you. Sleep issues do not start when we put our head on the pillow. They start when we wake up.
Ah.
What? Wait, what? So think about I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'll just say there may have been some times when you wake up in the morning and it is either off to the races and, nonstop all day, or you wake up and it's just, a nasty thought process from the beginning. And then, where does the rest of your day go?
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much guaranteed where it's going to go. However, simple things first thing in the morning. So the first thing I say is gratitude, 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 gratitude. So before your feet hit the floor, if you can simply, before you get out of bed, not just think about things you're grateful for, but feel them. So when we think of gratitude, when we just are looking for something to be grateful for,
Mm-hmm.
that drops our cortisol levels by 23%. Cortisol is our stress levels, right?
Yes.
So, okay, I'm going to look for gratitude wherever I can. So that's great. But it gets even better. And Sean Achor, literally, his job is a happiness researcher. Like, is that the coolest job title?
I
He
love it.
he's the one who said you look for gratitude, you drop your cortisol. When you drop from your head thinking about it to your heart and actually feel that gratitude, because you know the difference. And I'm not putting you on the spot. I'm talking about the collective you. You know the difference between, oh, that's a pretty sunset, and oh my gosh, that is the most beautiful sunset ever, right? When you go to
Mm-hmm.
that feeling place, now you're stimulating your body to produce dopamine and serotonin, which are the happy hormones. So when we start our day with gratitude, we're already programming in where we want to head through the rest of the day. Then the next step could be, again, very, very simple. This is from Mel Robbins, who I think she's got like the number one or close to the number one podcast in the whole world right now. And she
I'm
talks.
coming for you. I'm coming for you.
All right, Mel Robbins, you have been warned. You heard it first here. So she has a book about this called The High Five Habit. And it is simply, and this is going to be tough for some people. You tie this to brushing your teeth because it's a little reminder. As you brush your teeth, it reminds you, oh, I want to do this high five habit. You get done brushing your teeth because hopefully most of us are brushing our teeth every morning, right? So there's a habit we've already got ingrained, right? You get done, you look at yourself in the mirror. And for some of you, this is going to be tough. You're going to have a hard time looking in the mirror. You certainly are going to have a hard time looking in your eyes in the mirror. And that's okay. If all you do is quickly glance at the mirror, but you're giving yourself a high five in the mirror. And you can
Ah.
add in, you go girl, or you got this, or just that quick at the beginning, just the quick dip, put your hand up and then like that's it. At least you're starting, right? So there's all kinds of science behind that. I thought this was so interesting. In her book, she talked about a research study where they studied all the basketball, the NBA teams,
Mm-hmm.
preseason, and counted how many times they were high-fiving each other. Sure
Yeah.
enough, the teams that high-fived each other the most preseason are the ones who were in the finals at the end of the
Uh,
season. So we naturally high five other people all the time, right? A lot of us, and I can see that, you definitely have this as a part of your makeup, Nada, is you are cheerleader for other people, right? But how many of us are actually cheerleaders for ourselves? So
yeah.
just in the first few minutes of our morning, we're activating dopamine and serotonin with our gratitude. Then we're like giving ourselves that high five. Then another really important thing to do in the morning, and it's easier for you because you live in Florida, is get out and get some morning sunlight.
Mm.
And another podcast, they are far too long, in my opinion. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist who has the Huberman Lab podcast. He has a
Okay.
whole thing about getting morning sunlight. When we go out and get morning sunlight, no sunglasses in the morning and not through the windshield of our car, but actually out, we get 5 to 10 minutes of sunlight in the morning. It is sending the signal, we're already activating, when it's time to go to bed later at night. And if it's a cloudy morning, then you just have to be out there longer, say 15 to 20 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
if that's all you did, you'd already have a much greater chance of having an easier time falling asleep and then staying asleep. What's even more important to me is taking these moments to offload our stress throughout the day. Because when we can empty it out on a regular basis throughout the day, it's not building up so that then we go to put our head on the pillow and, whoa, okay, now we're thinking about all the stuff that we don't want to be thinking about. So truly, if we start in the morning and, set our GPS for, I want to be able to put my head on the pillow and drift off easily, then those are some really simple ways to get started.
Very good. I
And I could
appreciate
take I
that.
could take like a whole nother rest of the day to tell you more about
Even
it. But
more. Yeah.
it's just okay, these simple things, right?
Yeah.
Find gratitude, feel gratitude, give yourself a high five in the mirror. And I'm telling you, some people are going to have a hard time with that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
If you do have a hard time with that, don't judge yourself. Just remember, she said this might be hard. Okay. And then the more you do it, the easier it can
Practice
get.
the habit.
Yeah,
Yeah. What a mindset is a habit, just like learning how to run. I tell people that all the time.
exactly.
Going back to, how you start your day and how you let things in the beginning of the day influence the rest of your day. I drop my kids off to school every morning, and I don't tell them have a good day. I tell them make it a good day. We
Ah,
talk about it all the time. I taught them they're 10 and 7, and they know to say, make it a good day, mommy. And I was like, yes, make it a good day. Because I tell them you have control over how things affect you. Things are going to happen to you. You don't have control over that, but you have control over how you respond to them, right?
and I
So,
and oh, mwah, I love you for saying you have control over how you respond. That you
yes.
didn't say you have control over react. Because when we're reacting, we are not in our power. We have no
Mhm.
control. When we respond,
Yeah.
that's when we get to stay in our power. Your kids are so, so blessed to have such a wise mom.
I hope so. We can always try our best, right?
Well, and so think about it, as you're dropping your kids off and you're giving them this strong foundation of mindset, and their peers are being dropped off and hearing different messages, right? You know, hopefully your kids receiving these beautiful strong messages. I envision it as sprinkling seeds in the garden, right? Then your kids are, and that's going to ripple out to their friends too. So your impact doesn't just go to your kids, your impact goes wide as well.
Yeah, that's the hope. That's the
Well,
hope.
and so most of the techniques that I share are simple enough for you to share with your kids, right? But, and I will say this more for the listeners than for you, because I think you already understand this. You got to put your oxygen mask on first. I
Yeah.
know that I would learn things and I'd be like, oh, I want to go teach my kids that. And it wasn't until I got it in me, then they could start seeing it. So closing something I started earlier in the conversation was my son coming home from college one time and saying, did you start smoking weed? I said no, but he could notice how much I had
Oh.
chilled out. And it wasn't because I was smoking weed. It was because I became my own client, because I was doing all the things that I share with others. Because it doesn't matter, it doesn't
Mhm.
matter what we tell our kids. It's,
They're watching you, man. They're
yes, they are
watching
always watching us.
you. They're very perceptive. They notice. So that's where leading by example becomes very, very important, and showing to them how you
Yep.
react to things and helping them understand situations. It's huge.
Yes.
Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about a little bit is people who are interested in exploring hypnosis as a solution to whatever challenge they have. What advice would you give them about starting this journey? How can they prepare themselves for the best possible outcome?
So, shameless plug, come to my free self-hypnosis masterclass.
Yes.
I do one every month, and it's not a pitch fest. It's like, I'm not into that. I'm just like, let me demystify it, because there's so much fear around it, right? And one size doesn't fit all. I don't have a one size fits all mentality. I have
Mhm.
some meditations that I sell, but it's not, there's ooh, this hypnosis for stop smoking, or whatever. It's a one size fits all approach, and it doesn't work, right? So, going back 20 years, when I started my practice, there was another hypnotist in my town. No surprise. They offered in the newspaper, there was these little ads that said, quit smoking, 100% guarantee. And I
Wow.
was like, all right, I can't guarantee, because I can't control somebody. Well,
Mhm.
his guarantee was, if you start smoking again, you come back and I'll hypnotize you again for free. Well, I had somebody, one of his clients come to me, and I didn't know what the guarantee was at that time. She came to me and I said, well, like, why are you here instead of for him? And, what about that guarantee? And she said, oh, every time I started smoking again, I'd go back and he'd hypnotize me again. I was like, so he's hypnotizing you to know that you can smoke, and then you're going to go back and smoke and go back, right? So the one size fits all doesn't work, because he was reading the same script to everybody, right?
Mhm.
And so if you're curious about dipping your toe into hypnosis, just go into it with a curious mind, and know that you can find your way. And oh, you already are in hypnosis so much of the time, you just haven't realized it. When you find yourself in that focused state of awareness and you go, oh, is this what she was talking about? Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about. No swinging pocket watch. No, I spoke with somebody last week, who was talking about when she went to a hypnotist, and I don't know if they still do it. There was a chain of hypnosis centers where they had you put on these special glasses that
Mhm.
had lights and these different things, and then you had headphones, and it was like, we don't need that stuff. It's all internal, right? So if you're like, all right, I'm curious about hypnosis, but I'm not really sure, you're welcome to come to my class, or find some other way where it's a very inexpensive to free way to get a little learning about it. If you want, oh my gosh, I've got tons of videos on YouTube,
Mhm.
with different techniques and whatever. Um, because it's not scary. It's not this special power that only certain people have, and only if you're, a scary looking guy with a swinging pocket watch or a magic wand and a top hat.
Mm, I love it. So we definitely going to link on the show notes your class and your book, so people can get all the great, amazing tips and suggestions that you have. Tell us, where can they find you if they want to work with you?
They can find me, and hopefully you will definitely put it in the show notes, because
Yep.
who's going to know how to spell StephanieDelfonso.com. The easier is to find me through the link for the self-hypnosis class, and that is Hypnosis with Steph, STEPH.com. And then, I'd love to play.
Stephanie, thank you so much for being on the show with me. This is an amazing conversation with a lot of good things that our listeners can apply right away. So I'm very grateful that you are here today. And thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. And thank you, because you are an amazing, beautiful light in this world.
Oh,
And
thank
I
you.
just am thrilled to be a part of it, and ask you that you keep just shining your beautiful light out to your precious children and through your work and your podcast.
You're too sweet. Thank you so much. Bye, guys. And I hope to see you next week for another amazing interview in the Accidental CEO podcast.